Oh, and that's a brilliant effort. And they've turned it right around. In the space of a few minutes, Saudi Arabia grab control of the game.
Welcome to the latest episode of Dawri, the Saudi football podcast. And of course, joining me as always, it's Arab News Sports Editor Ali Khaled. The summer transfer window with all of its drama and intrigue, well, that's shut on September the 7th. And now we've completed the first international break of the season. Things are galloping along. So all eyes will turn back to the SPL this weekend. And we look forward to the return of Saudi players after a double header of matches at my beloved Newcastle United St James's Park. And of course, all the international stars who were involved with their countries across the globe. Coming up, as always, we've got Arab News correspondent Khaled Alarafah. He'll be giving us his dispatch from Riyadh. And we've got a very special guest joining us later in the show. But first and foremost, AK, what did you make of the international break, in particular, Saudi's results?
Hi, Peter. Good to be back. An interesting break. Obviously, it was Roberto Mancini's first matches with the Saudi Arabian national team. Didn't go too well. Not the best of starts for Mancini. The first match was against Costa Rica, as you said, at St. James's Park. They lost 3-1.
They were testing outfits, though, Ali, to be fair. They're decent teams up against.
They're decent teams, and I think, he would have learned a lot, I think. And but I think the main things he would have identified are problems that have been there for the Saudi national team for a couple of years now, even before the World Cup with Renard before. The lack of goals, it remains an issue. Saudi played well in the two games, a 3-1 loss to Costa Rica, 1-0 loss to Jurgen Klinsmann's South Korea. In periods, they played very well. They played very well against South Korea in the first half, but there was a few defensive uncertainties in goal. Lawais was very good, as he was during the World Cup. So a lot of things that you already knew about the team will have been reinforced. The biggest, like I said, the biggest concern is the lack of goals. And it's a long-running issue, especially now. We touched on this last week. With all these star players coming from Europe, Saudi forwards who already had limited opportunities to shine because, even before this influx, most of the foreign players tend to be forward players. So Saudi players are not, Saudi forwards, Saudi strikers are not getting as much opportunities up front. And now they will get less, with, this massive influx of players. So this is something to address in the coming weeks and months, of course. But yeah, I think, the main thing would have been the lack of goals.
You say that's like the main thing. Is there any need for an overall real concern yet, do you think, as far as the national team goes?
I think so, in the sense that, it has been a concern for a long time. It's not an issue, and there's no obvious solutions. We're obviously fantastic players like Salim Al-Dosari are there, Al-Shehri is there, but these are the players that played in the World Cup, and again, the standard of opposition was very high. Of course, they beat Argentina, but then lost to Mexico and Poland and Mexico. But probably with a little bit more firepower, they could have progressed to the second round, having beaten Argentina already, of course. So, yeah, I mean, it is concerning. Because I think it's concerning because there's such little time to prepare, and there are no clear obvious solutions. So we were talking last week. There's not much of a honeymoon period for him. Even had he won these matches, there wouldn't have been much of a honeymoon period. I think there's October's international break. We'll see 2 more friendlies against Nigeria and Mali. They will take place in Portugal. But the World Cup qualifiers, the 2026 World Cup qualifiers, begin on November 21st. Away game to Jordan. So that's, straight away you're being thrown in, into these big matches. And then, of course, the big one, it's just over a month after that, The team goes to Qatar for the 2023 AFC Asian Cup, the delayed tournament, which was meant to take place in China. 2023, of course, is being played in January. Really doesn't have much time to experiment at all. Those last two friendlies next month, he'd hope to get it right by then.
It's some start for the Italian coach. Just as an aside, great for people in Newcastle. I know that Saudi fans came from all over the world, but all over UK as well. It's thronged onto St James's Park to see the national team. But it was great because if you think about it, Ali, you just mentioned there, you've got Roberto, Mancini and Jurgen Klinsmann, two legends of the game at St James's Park. Great.
Yeah, mate. And listen, I mean, I think the second of those two friendlies, like I said, the first one was against Costa Rica. And as you said, Peter, it's decent quality of opposition. The second would have been probably the more important of the two, in the sense that South Korea would be expected to be one of those rivals for the AFC Asian Cup trophy, which Saudi Arabia, regardless of form, will be going into that tournament expected to do really well, expected to be one of the favorites, as will South Korea, always one of Asia's top teams. So that would have been, one to keep an eye on, and I would imagine the Saudi fans and Mancini himself, of course, were slightly disappointed because they would have wanted to put down a marker before the Asian Cup, say like, right, we are the favourites and all that. But we'll wait and see.
Elsewhere, Ali, one SBL star made history with his country.
Yes, it still takes a bit of getting used to say it, but Neymar of Al Hilal has become Brazil's all-time top scorer, scoring twice in the 5-1 win over Bolivia. So he's taken his tally to 79 now, Pete. And of course, he's beating the record of none other than the great Pelé, who is on 77. So, I mean, that is some achievement. I think an interesting one for the Saudi League. Whatever happens for the rest of Neymar's career, and whether this record gets overtaken in the future, the record books, will be interesting to show that. It was an SPL player that broke Brazil's all-time record in 2023.
Just as an aside to that, Ali, what you've got is you've possibly got here, and I'm going off at a tangent, but we are the football show, and both players that I'm about to mention are now plying their trade in the SPL. When you look at Pelé, it's official and unofficial, because I followed him from being a small boy. But, you've probably got the chance of either Ronaldo or Neymar, who are both in our SPL. They're probably the only people that could get close to Pelé's all-time record, of which people say he scored over 1,000 goals.
Yeah, I mean, it's disputed, as you mentioned,
Yeah.
and I think with the passage of years, a lot of people were saying, well, Pelé, was counting goals in training and counting goals in the schoolyard with his kids in the garden. It's a bit unfair and all that, but of course, there's that famous footage from '69 of him scoring the goal that was meant at the time to be like definitively the 1,000th goal of his career. He gets carried on the shoulders with a ball now. It's a little bit sad that over the years, his record has been sort of downgraded a little bit because of uncertainty. But listen, I mean, especially with Cristiano, there's just no question about his record. He's just, he's found his second lease of life in the Saudi League. A lot of people have mentioned it recently. It's interesting. He was, his form was a little bit up and down, and Messi starts playing really well for Inter Miami, and Ronaldo is just goes to a completely new level, and he's absolutely flying. They keep inspiring each other, those two, even when they're worlds apart. So it's great for us, to watch. So
fantastic. Listen, speaking of the SBL, what's the highlights of the coming round of fixtures for you? It's just got such a vibe to it, hasn't it? Now we literally cannot wait for the weekend's fixtures.
It is, Pete. I mean, and then again, I think you'll see with the matches that I'm about to mention, there are no real massive match equivalent of the Ittihad against Al Hilal last time out, But the champions Al Ittihad are now in third. They'll be itching to get back to action after, against Al Ukhdud after the 4-3 loss at home to Al Hilal. They were 3-1 up at half time. They lost. Mitrovic gets the hat trick. Salam Dawri gets the winner, and they lose to Al Hilal. and obviously Al Hilal leapfrog them into top place in the league. The champions will be itching to get back, and I do expect them to get 3 points against Al Dude.
Okay.
Cristiano and Al Nassr have been on fire in recent weeks, and again, we expect them to get 3 points against Al Rad. Ronaldo didn't play in Portugal's last match, the 9-0 win over Luxembourg. I think he was suspended, so he'll be nice and rested. Except Al Nassr have been banging in the goals. I think their last 3 matches have been 5 goals, 4 goals, and 4 goals. So something like that. So I think you'll expect him and them to add to their tally. Sadio Mane also like chipping in with the goals. But the game of the week, where all eyes will be again, is Al Hilal, leaders Al Hilal now. It's a capital derby against promoted Riyadh club. It's not the biggest of the Riyadh derbies, of course, as we know, but there will be massive interest in that. It could be Neymar's first match since signing, so we'll be
get there early.
Yes.
We'll be keeping an eye on all the action and developments, of course. It's time for our special guest, and it's a warm welcome to our Dawri special guest, former Abha coach in the SBL. Welcome to Roel Coumans. Roel, how are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
Very well. We're delighted that you could join us on our podcast. It's great to have you along. I'm going to ask you the first question. You could probably guess what it is, but I wanted to get your insight with your experience of the league. And what do you make of what's happening in Saudi football and the summer transfer window that we've just had?
Yeah, everyone who loves football think it's a very exciting thing, to be honest. For me also, it's... the league is booming. It's the exposure is getting better and better. So it's a huge project, and I'm very excited about it.
Roel, I wanted to ask you. Obviously, you coached Abha, you coached Al Hazm before that. So you're used to coming up against like the big teams like Al Hilal and Al Nassr and so on. Obviously now with all this with all these new players, the top clubs maybe have put even more of a gap between themselves and some of the other clubs which have not strengthened. How do you think the coaches now will the coaches of teams like Al Abha and smaller clubs will deal with this, and how would you have dealt with it?
Well. First, from my perspective, it's like it's your own philosophy, what you want. I think every coach has his own philosophy, and my philosophy is to try to play as most attacking in the most attacking way, without being naive and without being too open. Even with a smaller team, for me, it's the game. It's about having control, of trying to get control as much as possible. And if you're going to lean back and you park the bus, for sure, in the end, you will lose. So I try, and if I lose, I will lose with my head up high. So, and I believe that the chance on controlling the game a little bit more, the chance on winning is also higher.
Roel, do you think, with your ideology, with your philosophy that you have, obviously, being, you have a European, maybe like a possession-based thing. Did you find the players, like the culture of the players in Saudi Arabia, were they accepting of your philosophy, or receptive, I should say?
Yeah, everyone who plays football, they want to have the ball. And you see it back on training sessions. If they have the ball, they are exciting. They're not getting tired. They want to do something. They want to score goals. They want to do nice things. If they have to defend, most of the players, they don't like it. And I'm not judging any philosophy about going back and park the bus.
Yeah.
But if that's your philosophy, you have to create the players who can play that way of football, and that's not always happening, because they give you players or they get the players and they are not capable to do your style of playing. So. In my way of playing, I need players who understand my way, and so that's very important. That's also one of the reasons that I didn't want to go on with Abha, because the philosophy was not my philosophy.
Right. And Roel, speaking of players in general, again, you just spoke about how managers have a philosophy, that how do you think that a lot of the players who have been in the Saudi Pro League for a long time, maybe playing at a certain level, and not having too much attention worldwide, now they're playing against Ronaldo, against Benzema, against Neymar, especially sort of maybe defenders and goalkeepers, they're facing a level of opposition that they're not used to. It's a much higher level. Do you think this is will raise their standards, or are we going to see the players coming from abroad really sort of show their superiority?
No, yeah, they have to, they have to resist. In general, when it's more competitive, you will raise your level also. You have to, otherwise you're out very quickly. The only problem is that when you look to the amount of Saudi players, and the most teams will only be a maximum 3, maybe 4, and they're all only playing maybe as a wing back or as a winger, or in some clubs the goalkeeper, and that's it. And not so many. Maybe in some clubs there is a central defender, and Al Fatah has a Saudi striker, but most of the positions are on the side, and that's a little bit concern about the future. And these players who are playing now, they will raise the level for sure. They also will raise the level on training sessions.
That's great. Roel, I wanted to ask you about the Saudi national team. I mean, it's a good follow-up questions because, we were talking earlier, the Saudi national team for a while now, one of their concerns is that they don't score enough goals, and it goes back to the point you were just making. Maybe not enough Saudi forwards, very, very few. Would they rely on Salim Dawri too much? How do you see, they've lost their last 2 games, their friendlies. How do you see Saudi's chances in the Asian Cup in January with the new coach, Roberto Mancini?
Yeah, well, the Asian Cup is a different level than playing against South American teams or European teams. And as you know, in Asia, Saudi is the top football country. So the chance that they are getting very far in the Asian Cup, it's really high. And I believe they have a good striker with Firas from Al Fatah Al Barkan. They have a good striker, and I was surprised that he didn't play yesterday.
Yeah,
because the other one from Hilal, he's never playing. So he played yesterday, and you see that the guy has a lack of rhythm.
Yeah, this is the problem, is that the ones who can be they have potential to score the goals. Hamdan again at Al Hilal, or was Al Hilal. These players are not getting a chance now because of all these foreign players.
Yeah, true.
Yeah,
true. That's the problem for Saudi football, I think.
Okay, great. And Peter, you want to take it from here?
Yeah, finally, Roel, we always put our guest on the spot, so there's no escape for you, I'm afraid. I know it's early days, but some early predictions from you. Who in your eyes are favourites for the SPL title?
For me, it's Al Hilal.
Okay.
Yeah. I think we've had a few guests. I think everyone thinks Al Hilal are out for revenge this year, and will.
That's one of the main reasons I believe they will get back. They had not so good year last year. Before they were always at the top, so they're not gonna sit and wait for a second position anymore.
Yeah.
I can mark my chart behind my SPL chart, Roel, with another tick for Al Hilal. And then finally, I just wanted to know, as a coach, but as a football man yourself, which players are you most excited to see through the course of the season?
Yeah, well, I worked with some Saudi guys now the last 2 years, and I'm very excited about a few guys, Saudi guys. Saleh Al Amri, who's now at Ittihad, who came from Abha, he's doing very well, and he's also playing he's getting his minutes at Ittihad. And then the young boy from Abha, who started playing with me, Nawaf Al Sadi, he is at Al Shabab. I hope he will continue improving himself. And then another guy who I had at Al Hazem, he is from Al Shabab now to Abha. and he would come last year because I pushed them to get him. It's Alouche Al-Tamri, Abdallah Al-Tamri, and these guys are very talented. Especially the two last one, they are young and very talented. Saleh already is a little bit older, and he has specific qualities. So I'm looking for these players to see how they develop. But of course, I'm excited to see Neymar, and I'm excited to see Benzema in the league. It's Mitrovic. It's a different kind of football. When you see the Saudi league now, and you see the teams, when you see the match Al Hilal against Ittihad, it's amazing. This is what happened in that match, and this tells the story about Saudi league at the moment, I think.
It does, and it rounds it off perfectly, Roel, because I was just saying earlier in the podcast, and it's nice to have someone who coach at the top level, involved at the top level of the game, but shares the same excitement as we did. I was just saying earlier in our podcast how we can't wait for the weekends to come and see what the games bring. Absolutely fantastic to have you with us. Roel Coumans, thanks so much for your time. Great stuff. Now it's time for Khaled Alarafah's dispatch from Riyadh. Khaled, take it away. What have you got for us this week?
Hi Ali, hi Peter, how are you guys? It's good to be back with the league after the FIFA days. Here in Saudi Arabia, we were focusing on the Saudi national team camp in Newcastle. A bit disappointed of the results, but let's be logic here. Mancini didn't have a lot of time to look at the players. The guy just joined the team 2 weeks ago. He needs more time to look at the players. The Saudi national team announced last night that they're going to camp in October during the next FIFA days in Portugal. They're going to play 2 matches. I guess Mancini has a lot of time to look at the players during the league, and we look forward for that. And speaking of the league, I'm going to be covering this week, Ali, an interesting match, a derby actually, a derby between Al Hilal and Al Riyadh. Al Riyadh, who left the Pro League 18 years ago, now Al Riyadh is back. We were waiting for this derby 18 years ago. So hopefully it will be an interesting match, and hopefully we can see Neymar for the first match for the first time with Al Hilal. And I'll get you the news next episodes. Good luck and enjoy the show, guys.
Great stuff as always from Khaled, our Khaled there. Okay, final word as always goes to our very own AK Ali Khaled. What are you looking forward to most this week?
Well, I think Neymar playing, should he start for Al Hilal, is the big one in the league. Always obviously looking forward to how Cristiano and Al Nassr are doing again, because they've just been playing so well recently, climbing up the table as we expected them to do. But I think it's beyond just this week. I think I'm glad the transfer window is over. I'm glad this international break is over. I think we can finally focus on the league. I mentioned this last week. I think there's been a lot of distractions. The transfer window is very exciting. It was historic. Fans were loving it, of course. There was a knock-on effect for the rest of the world. And this is all very exciting for the fans, having the, brand new players join their clubs for the first time as well. Saudi, the eyes of the world are on Saudi. This is great. But, at the end of the day, you have to focus on the football, and I think, there's been a little bit of distractions with transfers. The international breaks always the first international break of the year always kind of disrupts the season because you're just getting into your stride. But we've had 5 rounds already. I think the table is starting to take shape. As we expected, Al Hilal are strongly back. Ittihad had that loss, but they're up there. Al Nassr, after a really bad start, are getting into it. But now we can focus on the football. Now we can, the coaches can focus on the football, and the players can get on with the job of really, assimilating to the league. Trying to. You'd want stability at those clubs. The players want to acclimatize to this league in more ways than one. In a literal sense, they start in the summer, the weather and the humidity were very tough, in training and in the games. I think now they can, the weather will start to improve in the next couple of months, and players will be more used to the lifestyle, to the culture, to their new teammates. And we can see, where this project is going. A lot of people have been asking, how many more players can they sign, and where is this going, and all that. Well, now we'll find out, because we've got a 4-month stretch. The coaches have got their final squads, and they can concentrate on the football, And to me, despite all the excitement of the transfer window, this is what I was really looking forward to.
Absolutely. It's all about the beautiful game, and it's all taking part again this weekend. That's it for another episode from us on Dawri. We'll be back with you next week. Enjoy the football, whoever your team is.